All right. So before we restart, anybody has any questions, any comments? Um, do you find that this course the information is overwhelming? Is it too much information all at once? How do you feel about how we have progressed so far?
Yes, that like doing working with somebody with diabetes. I think it's
Hmm.
all depends on what level it is, whether it's level
Hmm.
1 or 2. How many
Hmm.
times a day would you advise that you test that glucose level?
Okay. Um, Now, when you are starting anything new, that is when you want to really check it more regularly. And so you to kind of get an idea as to what the sugar is, you want to check it. Do a fasting. So before they start eating in the morning,
Yeah.
you do a test. You
Mm.
also want to check on their sugar after, like 2 hours after each meal. All right. Um, so 2 hours after the breakfast, 2 hours after lunch, and 2 hours after another meal that they have. Now, as I said, we encourage persons to restrict themselves to two main meals for the day. If they have a third meal, should be on the vegetables. So, what I said, 2 hours after each. So, before your first meal and 2 hours after each meal thereafter.
So if the person had had 3 meals per day, then you would have to
Hmm.
do it 3 times per day.
4 times because you're gonna do one before the first meal, and
Yes.
then two
And
two
then
hours after each
and
meal.
okay, so you do it 4 times per day. And
Right.
that's is that for glucose one, level 1 or glucose level 2?
You mean diabetes one or two?
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend that you try you can't really achieve a remission in a person who has type 1 diabetes. So this is a person who
Oh,
was type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes
yeah.
is the difference between type 1 and type 2 is in type 1 the person does not produce any insulin. That one you can't really put a person in remission. Well, I probably shouldn't use the
Oh,
word can't. I probably shouldn't use, but this method cannot put a person in remission with type 2 diabetes. There are
okay.
ways, but it's not in the scope of this method,
Oh,
of this approach.
okay. Thanks,
So
man.
it's up right. So what you're really trying to do with a person with type 2 is to reduce the inflammation to the level where the insulin starts working like it used to before, so that
Mhm.
so it can start to control the sugar again like we used.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, man.
The persons who have type 1, they can utilize these same interventions, but um, because part of some person with type 1 may also have issues with responding to insulin itself. So you can have a person who actually has type 1 and type 2 diabetes. You can have that. So in those
Okay.
persons,
That's
yes,
news to me. I didn't know that.
yes, you can have both of them at the same time because they are
Oh,
called by two different reasons. One,
okay.
in type 1, you don't produce an insulin, and in type 2, the body is not responding to the insulin. So you can have a
Okay.
person who doesn't produce an insulin, and the insulin that they're actually getting, the body's not responding to it like what it should. So they have to use
Okay.
very large amounts of insulin.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you can have both of them at the same time.
Okay. Okay. Thanks much.
No problem, ma'am. All right, so let us. Any other questions? Any other comments before we start? Okay. All right, let's jump
Yes,
into
yes,
the.
Doc. You spoke to
Uh-huh.
the level of the contents, if it's overwhelming or not.
Hmm.
For for me, it's not, and I think for most of us, it's not. But
Okay.
I am thinking about some working with somebody who is their educational level is kind of low.
Hmm.
So the content for that person would be kind of overwhelming. So what I'd have to do if I'm doing that is I'd have to this would have to take a longer period. So I'd have to stretch it out over a longer period than say like what you're doing with us. So, so I'd have to maybe first internalize what you're saying, know it, so that I can break it down and present it in bite-sized pieces so the person is not overwhelmed or confused at the end of the day. So
Yes,
yeah.
that's a very, very important point. You have to, um, you have to really basically look at the level of understanding the person has, and that can inform you as to how to go about it. And it's not everything that you have to understand. It's not everything that you have to really know. So so that is something you have to keep in mind. So you don't have to give them all the information that we have shared here. And that's why you have to kind of develop some level of trust, because the person doesn't have to know everything. So, but they have to be able to trust you and know that what you're saying to them is the right thing to do. So, you don't have to go into every little detail to explain to them everything. Right? All right. So, I'm going to look at the next one we're going to be looking at is avoiding hypoglycemia. And anybody wants to tell me what hypoglycemia is?
High blood sugar. High blood glucose level.
Someone says hypoglycemia is high blood sugar. Any other response? All right, let's jump into it.
Sorry, doctor. Yep. That's low. That's low. Hypo is low. Hyper is high. Sorry.
Right. That's correct. So hypoglycemia is low blood sugar, right? And of course, it is something that's important to try to avoid, and we'll explain reasons why that is. Now, hypoglycemia is blood sugar that is below 4 millimoles per liter, right? You'll find different numbers that they use for this. Some persons use 4, some persons use 3.5, some persons use 3. If your blood sugar is at 3.5, it is unlikely to cause symptoms, right? Usually you start to get symptoms when it falls below 3, right? Or you have 60 millimoles per liter, or 70, or below 60, when you're going down into 50, depending on the units that you're using. For the 3.5 is in millimoles per liter, and the 70, the 50, and the 60, those have to do it with milligrams per deciliter. So depending on the kind of machine that you have, if your blood sugar is falling below 4, then you're getting into a danger zone, and you'd want to really avoid that. And when the blood sugar gets down to like 2 and so, the person may start to become unconscious, right? And that is why you really want to avoid hypoglycemia. But hypoglycemia can actually cause long-term problems. It can affect the heart. So you would not want, that's not something that you'd want anybody to really experience. And this tends to happen at nights. So the person may even be asleep, so you'd really want to avoid this from happening. And there are certain methods that you can do. Now, it's important to, it's especially for persons who are on certain medications like insulin, for example. This is a fairly common cause of hypoglycemia, and which is why if a person on insulin, I don't think you'd want to really tackle those persons. If you know anybody who's on insulin that wants to achieve remission, definitely you want to to let me handle that one. But if a person is on 1 or 2 medications, then you might be able to help that person with the necessary precautions. But a person on insulin, that one is going to be a bit more challenging because of the risks that are involved, right? Because remember now that you're working to get this person's blood sugar down, not with the medication, but their diet and lifestyle. So when you combine that with their medication, then it might bring the person's sugar down to a level that is too low. So that's why you have to really be aware of this being a risk. And as I said, certain medications can do that as well. So some of the symptoms include shakiness, sweating, a rapid heart rate, dizziness, lightheadedness. Person may feel extremely hungry. That may be a symptom that they have. They may not have the other symptoms. They may start feeling irritable. They may start to get confused, having problems concentrating, having blurred vision, feeling very, very tired. They may start to have a headache. They may start to have upset stomach. They may even fall into unconsciousness and even have seizures, right? So this is when the blood sugar gets really low, like 2 or less than 2. That's when it may start to cause these serious symptoms. So hypoglycemia can be life-threatening, right? Which is why it's best to be aware of it and take the steps to avoid it, right? This is why the blood sugar monitoring is so important. And of course, it depends on how severe the blood sugar is. You don't want to monitor the sugar to make sure it doesn't go too low. And the blood sugar monitoring helps a person to make the right choices in terms of how to approach the problem. And it may show how the blood sugar responds to different factors. So, for example, you may notice a reduction in your sugar after you finish exercising, right? So it can inform you about those interventions. It may show you how eating a particular type of meal will affect your blood sugar so that it's not falling too low. So it's very, very important to monitor the blood sugar to avoid this from happening. And of course, it's important to maintain adequate supplies. So if you know that you're going into a weekend and you don't have enough, strips to take you through the weekend, then of course you want to stock up. So you have to monitor your testing supplies to make sure that you're not going, going into a danger zone where that is concerned. Now, at some point in time, you'll need to start. If a person's on medication, then you need to know when to start reducing the medication. So it's important for the person who's approaching this to discuss it with their health practitioner. Now, one thing about this aspect of it is that, to be honest with you, I'm not sure if all doctors are familiar with diabetes remission, right? It is something that I think a lot of doctors are learning about, but most doctors would not have had that kind of training per se to really tackle this matter, unfortunately. It is really on them to learn about it. If that is something that you want to do, you may find out some doctors who may not even know that diabetes can go into remission, right? So it's important to speak to somebody who is familiar with the concept so that they can give you some guidance, because the purpose of remission is to get you off the medications. That is really what remission is all about, right? So they should be able to guide you where that is concerned. Now, another important point, and this is a very, very important part of the process, once your blood sugar falls below a level of 7 millimoles per liter or 130 milligrams per deciliter, that is when you reduce your medication, right? You can either, if you're at maximum dose of medication, you want to reduce it. If you're on the lowest dose of medication, then that is when you discontinue the medication, right? This is a very, very important part of the process, right? So let's just say you're on metformin, and the range of dose of metformin is between 500 to 2.5 milligrams, 2.5 grams rather per day, or 3 grams per day. And let's just say you are taking 250 milligrams of metformin per day. Then you want to drop it down to 2,000, or you may drop it down to 1,500 per day, right? If you're taking 2 tablets per day, or if you're taking 4 tablets per day, may cut it down to 1, you may cut it down to 2. So that it is at that point that you reduce it. When it gets below 7 millimoles per liter or 130 milligrams per deciliter, that's when you reduce it. And the reason for this is that you don't want to bring it down too low, for them to start having problems with hypoglycemia.
And this is after fasting, Doc?
Yes, this is after fasting. That's exactly right. After fasting, right? So once your fasting gets down below 7 millimoles per liter, or in terms of the reading that you get after eating would be about, say, 10 thereabout. Once it gets down below 10 millimoles per liter, or 180 milligrams per deciliter after eating, right? You start reducing. Right? Let me say that again. 180 milligrams per deciliter after eating, 2 hours after eating, the 2-hour reading, or the fasting of 130. Those are the levels that you start to reduce the medication dosage to avoid blood sugar going down too low. Right? Now, when you have made changes to the diet and lifestyle, especially fasting and certain supplements, these can cause sudden drops in your blood sugar. And I said, anytime you start to make those changes, you want to start to check the blood sugar regularly afterwards. So anything that can reduce your blood sugar quickly, such as starting to use the fiber, such as avoiding those high glycemic foods like your sweet potato and your bread, your sugars. Once a person cuts off those foods, you'd want to see what changes those will have made. Those don't really require remission to improve. There are some changes in your blood sugar that will take place as a result of remission, and there are some changes that will take place as a result of immediate changes in your diet. So if you're a person that used to eat donuts and cake and all of that, and then you decide to stop eating those things, then you'll notice an immediate significant reduction in your blood sugar at that time, right? Remission takes place slowly, right? Will bring your blood sugar down slowly, but those changes will actually cause rapid changes. If you start to add fiber to your food, extra fiber to your food, that can bring about a rapid change. If you start to, avoid those foods, that can bring about a rapid change. Exercise, those things can bring about rapid changes. So those changes will require early testing, early monitoring to see what they are doing, right? So let me just say that again. The changes with these interventions, some will be fast, some will be slow, right? And it's important to pick up on the readings, the changes in readings for both aspects of the process, the fast reductions and the slow reductions, right? And of course, so even after you've made those changes, you find that let us say that you start doing your fasting. You've made it all the other changes, you change your diet, you change your lifestyle, and you see it settle down at a certain level, right? And then if you maintain those changes that you have made, then you'll find that at the end of the month or during the month, you'll start seeing the blood sugar continuing to come down, but more slowly. And when that is happening, you'll want to also check the readings to make sure that they are not going down too low. Is that clear? Does anybody understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So as I said, in cases where you are instituting those interventions that bring about changes rapidly, you'd want to make sure that you're monitoring the person's blood sugar on a regular basis. All right. So you'd have to check it on a especially the fasting. The fasting is the one that tends to come down. That tends to be your lowest reading for the day. So that is the one that you'd want to also monitor. There are some persons, if you are going through this process and you find that you wake up in the nights and you're having those symptoms of a low blood sugar, the sweating or the excessive hunger, the nervousness, 3 o'clock in the morning, then of course you want to check it to see what the sugar is. And if you notice that the sugar is low during those times, then you want to make the changes to the medication the following day to avoid it going down too low. You do not want to increase your food intake. You reduce your medication to compensate for your blood sugar going down too low. Some person will tend to want to say eat more, right, to avoid the blood sugar going down too low. That is counterproductive, right? Reduce your medication. You want to probably speak to your doctor about it, and they will advise you as to what changes that ought to be made, because there are some changes in medication that are a greater priority than others. So the doctor will tell you which ones to reduce at that time. All right. There are certain unexpected situations that may arise that you have to to intervene. You may go somewhere and you expect to eat at a certain place, or you expect to get your meals. You want to be prepared for time. So it's important to have something that you can eat, some emergency food, right? So that if in case you go to a place and all that's available is something that is not really in keeping with what you want to have. You want to have some food on hand, something quick. It may not be the best thing, but something that you can keep, something that's not going to spoil, right? So have something on hand so that you can eat, so that especially when you're getting into the remission and your blood sugar is going down, but you may be on a medication. You take the medication already. You don't want to wait too long before you eat. So you want to make sure you have something at all times that you can eat, so that your blood sugar does not fall too low. Sometimes you may find that you may do a bit more activities than you're expecting to, right? That is something that might cause your blood sugar to fall low. For example, you may be going somewhere, but the distance that you walk is longer than you expect. Make sure that you have supplies to keep you in that case, and even your blood sugar machine in that case, to check your sugar to make sure it's not going down too low. So when you must be prepared for the unexpected, so that at all times you stay in a safe place, right? And of course, as you mentioned, you keep snacks. You also can keep some glucose on hand, so that if the glucose is not to be used in that setting where you're not getting to eat when you don't want to. Use it if your blood sugar goes down too low, right? That is when you use your glucose. But if you find that you may not be able to access food at the time that you're expecting, that is when you have the foods, so that it prevents your blood sugar from going down too low. Especially if it sees that your blood sugar coming down, it's not really low, but it is it is in a normal range. If it's in a normal range and you're not expecting to get access to the food that you're planning for, then you want to eat something at that time so it doesn't fall down in the low range, right? And of course, inform the persons around you about what is happening, so that if you start to get confused or anything like that, then they'll be able to assist you and they'll know what to do. Right? Is that clear? Anybody understands that? Wonderful. All right. So hyperglycemia. Yes. Somebody say something?
Yes, I just saying yes.
Okay, right. So in conclusion, you want to be aware of hyperglycemia as something to be aware of. And you be proactive, make sure you have supplies in terms of food and glucose. Make sure that you have a machine. You probably would want to keep your machine with you at all times, right? Just in case anything happens, because life is life. It has its twists and turns. So you have to make sure that you're prepared to deal with those emergency situations at all times. And of course, it also knowing your blood sugar will help you to make better choices, and it's important to collaborate with your healthcare provider to ensure that you stay on track. Right. Next one we're going to be looking at is let's see.
I had 2 questions in the chat, doctor.
Oh, I can't see the chat right now, so you can go ahead and just ask the questions.
Okay. It's 2 questions. One is if your HbA1c is 5.9, how much lower would you recommend it be? And if your blood sugar, which is this blood stick, is consistently between 85 and 100 fasting, how much lower would you recommend that it be?
This is somebody who is diabetic?
Yes, sir.
And this is somebody who is on medication?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, you don't really have to. If it's a fasting between 80 and 100, you don't really have to get it done in the lower than that, right? Because once it is up 105 or less, then that is fine for fasting for a person who is on medication. Of course, what we are discussing is diabetes remission. So you want to get the person to the point where they can get the blood sugar in that range without them having to use the medication. A1C as well. It's about 5.6 is okay, you know. No, but you know, you don't have to be so hard and fast about the A1C. Once you can get it down to about 5.7, 5.6, that should be okay.
Thank you.
All right, no problem. All right, next one we're going to be looking at is how to make the transition to becoming a vegetarian. This is another touchy topic. This is another touchy topic because a lot of times when persons are, you know, tackling remission, the plant-based diet is the one that may prove to be their Achilles heel because people like having their meat, right? So it's important if they really want to pursue it. As I was saying to you before in previous presentation, you don't have to go on a plant-based diet to achieve remission. There are other ways, but I would say this is the best way and this is the most sustainable way, right? So, so that's why it's important to encourage persons to really really take this on. It is the best way. It is the healthiest way. So it's important to encourage them to utilize this, right? Now, a vegetarian diet does not mean that you're on a healthy diet, right? So you have to be an anti-inflammatory diet and lifestyle, as we have spoken before, not just a plant-based, but a healthy plant-based diet, right? Education is important, so you have to learn about nutrition, the recipes that you can use, the foods available to you in your area. You have to learn about healthy cooking methods and what the latest research is saying to you. For example, here on the BRAC, we don't have some of the things that you might be available in Grand Cayman or in America or Jamaica. So you have to know what's available for you and make the best use of what you have. It doesn't make any sense for you to focus on what you don't have. You focus attention on what you have, right? And so you can make the best choices, right? It's important to discuss that with somebody who is knowledgeable about diabetes remission, either a doctor or a nutritionist. You find that a lot of persons may not be aware of this being a possibility, so it has to be somebody who knows about it. This person can give you, you know, personalized guidance, you know, to tell you what you can use, especially that's available in your area, and so that you know you set your goals properly in terms of your actions and your blood sugar readings. Then that person can give you the follow-up that you need to ensure that you're on the right track. And if you have any challenges, they can give you guidance where that is concerned. Right? It's important to also make a gradual transition. You know, if it's a problem for you, right? Some persons are very motivated and can make these changes quickly, but others may need a little time. So, for example, they may want to start by just increasing the amount of plant-based proteins in their diet. So, rather than to say, okay, you're going to eliminate the chicken and the fish, you add more. So, let us say you cut down on the amount of fish you have and have as your protein some fish as well as some peas and beans, right? So you start off there by just letting them get used to having plant-based proteins as a source of their proteins, right? And the other thing that you can do is, let us say, the person loves their curry chicken. You can let them start having some curry chickpeas, you know. So, or their stew beef, you can have some stew black beans, or your stew red beans. So you can replace it, or you can even add it to it. So rather than have your stew beef alone, you can put in some black beans in it, so to cut down the amount of beef you're having, and start to get used to having the black beans. Another thing you can do is move away from the red meats, right? So move from the red meats to the white meats, and then you move from the chicken to having fish alone, right? So you can make these changes, gradual changes as well. It tends to make it a bit easier when you use a gradual approach. It's important. This is what I'm going to say to know is very, very important when moving from a meat-based diet to a plant-based one. It is the whole issue of getting your essential amino acids, right? Now, most plant-based proteins, and let me just remind you what those plant-based proteins are. Your peas and beans, nuts and seeds. You also can get it from things like chia seed, buckwheat, and so on. So these are going to be your plant-based source of proteins. Most plant-based source of proteins don't have all the essential amino acids. The amino acids are what called the building blocks of the protein. So your body uses amino acids to make your proteins. The proteins will make your muscles and also your enzymes and many other substances. So getting the essential amino acids is very, very important. Now, if you're not getting all the essential amino acids, what will happen to your body is that it will start to cannibalize itself. So in other words, if you're not getting all your essential amino acids, your body will start breaking down your muscles so as to get those essential amino acids. So it's important to have the right balance where that is concerned. So when you're combining your plant-based proteins, what you do is that you make sure that in any particular day, and this is very important for you to remember, make sure that you get your peas and beans and your nuts and seeds, right? It doesn't have to be at the same meal, right? It can be at the same meal as well as it can be at different meals. Make sure you have your peas and beans and nuts and seeds in that day, right? That is one way. Other thing that you can do is you make sure that you get plant-based proteins that have all the essential amino acids, and these are called the complete proteins. So complete proteins have all the essential amino acids, right? When you eat meats will contain all the essential amino acids, but most plant-based proteins do not contain all the essential amino acids. So you have to do combinations in order to ensure that you get them. And you get the combinations I've said, peas and beans, nuts and seeds, right? But you don't have to do this if you have something like, because some carbs do contain a good amount of proteins. So for example, your brown rice will contain a good amount of proteins. And the proteins that are in your brown rice will balance the proteins that are in your peas. So peas and rice will contain all of your essential amino acids, right? So let me just say it again. You make sure that you have a plant-based protein that is complete, like your soy, your quinoa, your chia seed, or your buckwheat. Or you have your peas and beans, nuts and seeds. That is another way to get all the essential amino acids. Or you ensure that your carbohydrate source also contains enough proteins. This is how you ensure that you get all the essential amino acids. This is something that anybody who's going to take on a vegetarian diet must be aware of, right? Getting your essential amino acids, Are there any questions on this? Because this is very important. Any questions here? Is everybody clear on this?
Doc,
Any questions? Yes.
is
Clear.
there other forms of amino acid used besides in the foods itself?
Well, you do have protein supplements, right, in powder form. You can get proteins from those sources as well. For example, some companies will have like a pea protein, a plant-based protein as a protein source. So that is something that you can use. However, you have to make sure that it's good quality. Make sure that there is enough fiber in it, because if it's just proteins alone, then you may have to make sure that you get some fiber along with that. And that could be like your flaxseed or your chia seed, because you don't want to have any food that is going to be too simple and it's going to absorb into your body quickly. So if you're getting a protein source like that, a protein supplement, there are many companies that will offer that. You have to make sure that you have your fiber to compensate for if it's just proteins alone and nothing else, no fiber, you have to add the fiber back to it to ensure that it doesn't cause any problems. Do you understand?
Yes, sir. What is
Right.
your take? What is your take on the liquid amino acid that we sometimes use in the place of soy sauce?
I'm not familiar with that. I'm sorry. You'd have to speak about that with me another probably by WhatsApp. I'm not familiar with that one, so we will have to discuss that one off here. And of course, this is a learning process for all of us. You guys will know things that I don't know, so you're going to be sharing information. So we'll have to discuss that another time. I guess we can probably talk about it in the next session.
I will reach out to you.
Right, good. Okay, so as I said, it's important to get all essential amino acids, when making that switch. Make your food tasty, season it properly, use your herbs and spices. These are some examples. Herbs include basil, cilantro, rosemary. The spices are like allspice, cinnamon, turmeric. These will help to keep your food tasty. And trust me, there are some persons who are so good at making vegetarian food, you don't even know you're not eating meat, right? So ensure that you get some competence. And it's a lot of people are just afraid that they don't know. But I said a lot of times it's just a matter of switching out your animal-based proteins for your plant-based protein. That's it. If you're having your stew, just use your black beans or your red peas, and it works just the same. It doesn't require any major changes. Just switch out the proteins, and that it works just like that. And of course, there are many different recipes you can look about it. You can look for them online, YouTube. You can look in Google. You can use artificial intelligence. There are many different places you can look for this kind of information, right? Also, make sure that you include your healthy fats. Now, I can tell you from personal experience, sometimes when you make the transition to being vegetarian or vegan, whatever you want to call it, they say because the animal-based proteins will contain a lot of fat, when you cut off animal-based proteins, you may not be getting enough fat into your diet. So you have to make sure that you include healthy plant-based foods that contain a fair amount of fat. And you spoke about avocado, the nuts, olive oil, coconut. These are healthy sources of fat, plant-based fats, and you should make sure that they are included so that if it's a person like me who doesn't have on much weight, then you don't get into the place where you start losing weight. Of course, if a person is overweight, you still want to make sure that you get some healthy fats. You may not want to get as much, but fats are an important part of your nutrition and should not be avoided. Fats can help to help you to feel full for a longer period of time. So when you have some healthy fats with the breakfast, like avocado with your breakfast, then you can avoid having to snack until your next meal is due. That is why fats are so important. They are not really bad. It's just how we use them and what types we use, right? Fats also help with certain nutrients being absorbed, and healthy fats can actually help to reduce inflammation. So fats should not be something to avoid, but you may need to reduce it if you're having too much. All right. Meal preparation is important, and meal planning. So so make sure that you have an idea of what you're going to buy when you go to supermarket. That can help you to prepare for your meals. So make sure that you have an idea as to what it is that you're going to be having, so that you can purchase those things that you're going to be having. You can do research on different recipes, and then you get what you need for that recipe, so that it's helping to avoid making poor choices. You don't wait until you know the morning to know what you're going to have. You don't get up and say, oh, what am I going to have today? No, you should know what you're going to have on a particular day from the day before, and you prepare for that, so you don't get up and then you wonder what you're going to have. As a matter of fact, if you can prepare your food before, that's even better, so you know exactly what you're going to have, right? So if you're the kind of person that you don't know how you're going to feel the next day, then you may have a challenge, right? Because you have to plan your meals when you're trying to achieve your mission. You can't get up and then you decide, unless you're going to have many choices. You can pick and choose and refuse what you're going to have, but it's best to plan ahead what you're going to have, so you don't end up in problems. And of course, there are certain supplements you can use, and we'll speak about that in the next presentation, right? When you're going out, look at what the menu is offering, so that you can usually when me and my wife are going out, we especially she's the one that usually does this. She usually goes on the online, check out the restaurant, and find out what are the vegetarian options, right? And so way ahead of time what you're gonna have, so you don't go there and start wondering, oh, what you're gonna have. And sometimes you can bring your own food. For example, they may have certain foods which contain meat as a part of the menu. So you can bring your black peas along with you and said, can you switch out your chicken with this black peas, please? And they'll do it for you. You understand? So you can even bring your own food to the restaurant. Not the entire thing, of course, but a particular part of it. You may look online and you may see them have a particular meal that you may want, but it contains meat, right? So you bring along your own proteins, so that you don't miss out on the protein part of your meal. And of course, if somebody else is arranging that particular restaurant, outing, then you make sure that you discuss that with them, that they know ahead of time that, listen, you don't want to be having any of those types of proteins. So try and find a restaurant that offers this as an option. Right. And of course, as time goes by, you want to, because I mean, it's not everything that is vegetarian you're going to like, right? So you may try something, you may try a particular recipe, you don't like it, you can switch to something else. You may not like how a particular food makes you feel, you can switch to something else. So you always looking at your efforts, looking at what you're doing and making adjustments accordingly, because you want to make the process as seamless as possible, to make sure that you stay on track. Again, make sure that you celebrate your achievements and behaviors. Forgive yourself for any mishaps that you may have, and get support from persons around you. This is very, very important when trying to go on a vegetarian diet or a vegan diet, because when you have persons that are going to be telling you negative things, it's not really going to be very helpful. So try and make sure that you get support from persons who are going to help, as we have discussed before. Right. Any questions on this topic? We'll move on.
Always double check with the restaurant if you can actually bring in your own food before assuming that, because some will not allow you to do it. They don't allow you to bring in outside food.
No, when I say bring your own food, I don't mean bring the entire meal. That's not what I mean.
But not even a little bit.
So because when the restaurants that I've gone to, they actually didn't have a problem. But it's basically just switch out a particular protein. So you bring along and that is why you have to research the restaurant that you're going to be before you go there. If you're going to go to a new restaurant, make sure that you check if this is a possibility before you you proceed with going there.
And just to add also what you could do, so if on the menu, for example, if say they have a black bean sandwich, but
Mhm.
and you want to have rice and peas, but it's with
Mhm.
meat. So you could ask them to switch if they have the black bean rather than doing a black bean sandwich. Could they put the black bean with the rice and peas? So that sometimes they will do that. And you can also encourage the restaurants, to change up their menus because that's something that I've done to encourage them to, if they could add a little vegetarian and that would increase their clientele. And that's something that has been done in the past. So everybody's
Right.
benefited.
Right. So especially if you have a restaurant that you like their food, but you want to make sure that they're on the right track with you, then that's something that you can do. All right. So we have, sorry, I have two more presentations we're gonna go to. If we can go to them quickly. We'll look at supplements that can be used in diabetes remission. I want to see if we can run through this as quickly as possible. So there are the probiotics. Probiotics can be used. Probiotics are important because they help to improve on your intestinal bacteria, which, as we'd have discussed before, is very helpful with promoting diabetes remission. So probiotic is one of those things that you can use, and especially those which contain prebiotics, we call soluble fiber. This is actually very important in the remission process. So in other words, persons who are trying to achieve remission, you'd want to encourage them to use a probiotic supplement to help them. It doesn't usually bring about immediate improvements. It is usually over time, right? So you can let them get a good probiotic supplement from the pharmacy or health food store. Turmeric also has been shown to be helpful, and the dose that they normally use is 500 milligrams to 2,000. This actually reduces inflammation and can help over time in improving insulin sensitivity and bringing your blood sugar down over time. Reishi mushroom, this is one of my favorite supplements because it has so many different benefits. It's not available here on the BRAC. I don't know if you can find anywhere in Grand Cayman that sells it, but I usually buy it online. Reishi mushroom has many different benefits, and it's something that I definitely encourage person to have. So this is something that I would really encourage persons to use. And that it will help to improve on their insulin sensitivity, and the dosage is there 1 to 2 grams per day, and it comes as a supplement, comes as a capsule, right? So you're not gonna have the actual mushroom body. You're gonna have a supplement which contains the reishi mushroom. There's also cinnamon. Cinnamon is well known to help with helping the blood sugar down, and the Ceylon type is one that is said to be most effective. And the dosage that you use about half teaspoon with each meal. Berberine, it kind of works kind of like metformin. That increases insulin sensitivity. It also helps with bringing the weight down. And again, I'm not sure if it's available in Grand Cayman. We don't have it here. If you want something, this is something you want to use, you can purchase it on Amazon.
No, it's here at the Himalaya store.
Okay, there you go. So berberine actually can be helpful in helping to control your blood sugar. Alpha lipoic acid. This is another one that reduces inflammation. It also has with persons who have diabetes neuropathy. So persons who have nerve damage from diabetes. This can be helpful for them as well. And the dosage is 300 to 600 milligrams. Chromium is well known. Chromium picolinate is the one that is most often used, and it also helps with controlling the weight. The dosage between 200 to 400 micrograms per day, very helpful and very well known to help to improve insulin function. Magnesium, this is again one of my favorite supplements. It helps with many things as well. It helps with the nerves. It helps with blood pressure. It helps to improve insulin sensitivity. It helps with sleep. It is a jack of all trades. Very, very, very good supplement, widely available, and and well tolerated. So this is another one which I recommend, which can be used as well. So you can take it with your meal. Bitter lemon, bitter melon rather. This is another one that is fairly well known, which can be used, especially for persons who want to use something to replace their medications. Bitter melon is one that can be used to help. It doesn't. I wouldn't say it works as well as any medication, but it can help to reduce your blood sugar if it is high. Fenugreek is another one which helps to control the blood sugar and can be used in diabetes remission as well to keep the blood sugar from going too high. So that's another one that you can use. The dosage between 500 to 1,000 milligrams in divided dosage. American ginseng, it also helps to lower blood sugar, dosage between 200 to 400 milligrams per day. And the additional benefit is that it can increase your energy level, which sometimes may be a problem. Vitamin D can reduce the risk of diabetes. And it also helps to reduce inflammation, and which is one of the problems with diabetes. So that one can be very useful. You can use 2,000 international units long term. Some person may use a higher dose over a short period of time if they are vitamin D deficient, but 5,000 is not recommended to be used on a daily basis long term. You can use it a couple times a week if you're going to use it long term, or you can use it for a short time and then go down to 1,000 or 2,000 international units per day. And B vitamins are also important. I wouldn't say this is essential, but it can be useful. It helps to give energy. It also helps the nerves, which tend to be a problem with persons with diabetes. Omega-3 helps reduce inflammation, and it may not help with the diabetes itself, but it may help to prevent some of the complications of diabetes. Coenzyme Q10 is another well-known antioxidant supplement and can improve insulin sensitivity. This works over time, and the recommended dose is usually around 200 milligrams per day. You can go more than that. What I've seen in terms of recommendations is 2,000. Sorry, 200. 200 or more is where I would go. So that is the one that is most effective. All right, so supplements can be used, but and if you want to keep it simple, you could use an antioxidant like coenzyme Q10 or turmeric or reishi mushroom, along with one that is glucose lowering, like for example cinnamon or berberine or fenugreek, right? And along with that, you use probiotics. So you could use 3 different supplements at once, right? One that is antioxidant, like the reishi mushroom, or the turmeric, right? Or the coenzyme Q10. That is your antioxidant supplement. And then you could use one that is a glucose lowering along with that. That is your cinnamon or your berberine or your fenugreek. And you combine that with your probiotic supplement. So the probiotic one is you should, unless a person doesn't tolerate it, probiotic one can always be used. And then you combine 2 other supplements along with that. So 3 different supplements, antioxidant, glucose lowering, and a probiotic in combination. And this can be very helpful in helping you to achieve diabetes remission. Any questions? We have one last one to cover. Are there any questions before we move on? Any questions?
Any one of these supplements is okay with the person who have blood pressure problem?
Yes, it shouldn't have. I mean, there are some of them. The antioxidant supplements will help with blood pressure as well.
Okay.
Right. So the coenzyme Q10, the reishi mushroom, the turmeric will also help with blood pressure, but you may not see an immediate effect from it, right? You may not see an immediate effect from it. So, so it's not going to bring about that quick result that you want.
Okay. Okay, thanks, much.